Welcome to the Town Council meeting of December 15th, 2025. We'll have a call to order from the councilors. Councilor Welsh.
Hardin Welsh.
Curtis Reister. Darrell Ford.
Wayne Burton.
Sally Needell.
Joe Friedman.
Todd Selick.
Oops, sorry. Town Administrator. M. Friedrichs.
Robin Vogt.
Heather Grant.
And now the approval of the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda as written.
Oh, didn't we want to make an amendment to,
That'll come later when we get to unanimous consent.
okay.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Okay, by a show of hands. It's unanimous, it's approved. There are no special announcements today. And next is the approval of the minutes of December 1st, 2025.
I made two very minor corrections I sent to Karen.
We make a motion to approve the minutes?
Did you
I'll
ask?
move to, sorry, did you want to make a?
No, I was going, go ahead.
Oh, I move to approve the December 1st, 2025 minutes with minor corrections sent to Karen.
I'll second that.
You second? And you said you had some minor, and Councilor Ford?
Yeah, I had a correction. I should have written it down. I think it was on page 6. It was the motion I made to move the Phase 4 of Madbury Road project. And in here, it's Phase 5, because I originally said Phase 5, and then I got corrected. And it should read Phase 4. Two places, line 42 and 44 on, I think it's page 6.
I thought you originally said Phase 6,
No.
and it was
4.
corrected to Phase 5.
No,
'cause-
1, 2, 3A and 3B and 4.
I think it's 4A and
4B
4B.
and 5.
Yeah, I think 4A and 4B.
All right, well, then it's good. I retract my, my correction.
Phase 3 is scheduled to be completed in the summer of 2026.
We could revisit Phase 4A and 4B.
Nay, nay.
Are there any other corrections, changes, deletions? Councilor Grant.
Heather Grant, aye.
Robin Vogt, aye.
M. Friedrichs, aye.
Joe Friedman, aye.
Sally Needell, aye.
Wayne Burton, aye.
Darrell Ford, aye.
Curtis Reister abstained.
Hardin Welsh, aye.
And the reason for abstention?
It was in Ukraine.
Okay. Is Carolyn, thank you. Is Carolyn Bishop or a UNH representative here today? This was usually when we would have that. Okay, so now we'll have public comments. For the public, please introduce yourself and give your address. And there is a 5-minute time limit on your remarks.
Good evening. I'm Cheryl Bass. I live at 4 Grady's Lane in Dover. I'm here representing the public library. I'm the public library director here in Durham. Because I joined the previous meeting after the discussion and the vote to cut the library print budget by 50%, I didn't have the opportunity to respond to comments or clarify possible misconceptions, so I'd briefly like to do that for the record. First, the print materials budget for adults and children is one of the most essential components of our service. A cut of $18,795 directly affects the children, older adults, and other vulnerable residents who rely on us most. A single large print book costs can cost up to $40. And children's books continue to rise in price. Many patrons cannot afford to purchase books. The library is their primary access to reading and learning. Restricting access to new information reduces equity, limits the community's ability to stay informed, and undermines lifelong learning and democratic engagement. Second, limiting the purchase of new books absolutely reduces the number and the quality of books available at the library. Library collections operate on a physical life cycle. As we add new materials to meet current needs, we also remove items that are worn, outdated, or no longer needed. Without the ability to purchase new books, the collection shrinks and becomes less accurate and less relevant. Long-term recovery from slowed purchasing is also more expensive. leading to lump sum catch-ups at higher prices, gaps in subject areas, and weakened replacement cycles. Third, increasing reliance on interlibrary loan is not a cost-neutral or staff-neutral alternative. Each ILL item must be received, logged, processed, prepared for lending, and our staff who manage this service are already at capacity. Increased reliance on ILL would require additional staffing, and new books are not available through ILL for at least 6 months. ILL simply cannot replace a robust local collection. In this tight budget year, I want to emphasize that the library budget presented to you was lean, responsible, and a true maintenance of service requests. We operate efficiently and stretch every dollar received. We operate, excuse me, a reduction of this magnitude will have immediate and visible impacts on our ability to serve the community. We remain committed to providing equitable access to information for all residents, and maintaining a strong print collection, up-to-date resources is central to that mission. I respectfully ask the council to integrate this clarification into any future considerations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Robin Glasser, 1 Roseanne Way. I'm a lifelong library user. I've had a library card for 70 years, and I'm here tonight as the chair of the library trustees. I fully understand that this is a very difficult budget year, and we acknowledge that the library isn't immune to cuts. What troubles me is that the $18,700 and change cut that was made to the book budget was without input from the library. Cheryl and I attended 2 budget sessions where we were available to brainstorm the least harmful reductions should cuts be necessary. And only Carden asked about the frequency of custodial services in those 2 evenings that we were here. I'd like to repeat that the budget request the library submitted was a level service budget. Staffing levels remain the same as this year, and the only increase in operation line items is for contractual increases and a modest amount for inflation. We requested no increase of staff hours or services or programs. As Todd calls it, we submitted a steady state budget. As you know, each year the library trustees hold an annual appeal to supplement the town appropriation. We commit $20,000 to the operating budget annually. We also fund additional programs and services which are over and above our commitment to the operating budget. Over the past 4 years, the trustees have contributed $110,000 to library operations. I'd like to address the $18,700 reduction that was made to the library's book budget last week. This represents a 50% cut to the print books, which are still the heart and soul of the library. As Cheryl mentioned, the print collection is heavily used by our patrons of all ages, from picture books for young children to large print books for elders. A cut to this severe will set back our collection development and will take years to recover. To Cheryl's point about interlibrary loan, I'd like to reiterate that it is heavily dependent on staff time to process the inbound and the outbound books that our interlibrary loan librarian is already working at maximum capacity. As another point of information, the van delivery services that moves the interlibrary loan books around the state is provided by the state of New Hampshire State Library with funds from the Federal Institute of Library and Museum Service. This funding has been eliminated at the federal level effective 2027. This will most likely mean an assessment to local libraries to keep ILL running, another expense to add to our budget. In closing, it is my hope that going forward, we can work together to provide the best possible library services for Durham residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Catherine Gatcomb. I live at 22A Simons Lane. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am a member of the Library Board of Trustees, but today I'm here with my family because the library is important to all 3 of us as residents of Durham. So my daughter Florence is 2 years old, and the library is one of her favorite places. She often pretends to be Miss Kelly, our children's librarian, and does story time for us. And like many toddlers, one of her most commonly asked questions is why. So as parents, The library is a really vital resource for us to check out books to help understand the world around her. The library has purchased books for us and has books in their collection for us on topics like let's not bite our friends, different holidays around the world, what to expect when she goes to the doctor for the first time. These are all really important to us, and we're a family, like Cheryl mentioned, that is not able to purchase these books, for our own, to own. And so having an adequate print budget is really important to keep materials like that up to date for families like ours. But of course, the library is not just for toddlers. My husband and I are also big library users. My husband, I'm talking for him. He can't speak, but he's really here to support too. It checks out graphic novels often. I've checked out mobile hotspots so I can work remotely from home when we lost power. We use digital resources, and of course, in all the free time that we have as parents of a toddler, to read books for our own pleasure as well. And the library for us is also a community hub. It allows us to connect with other families with young children. It's really hard to meet people with children, and this is a resource for us to do that as well. So I'm here to just say the library's collection and its services are a really crucial part of our community. I understand you have a lot of big decisions to make tonight, but I'm asking to please keep the library funding, adequately funded as it was originally proposed. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Sudie Blanchard, and I live at 14 Stone Quarry Drive. I was a professional librarian for over 50 years. Most of those years were spent in public libraries. When I moved here 5 years ago, I was so impressed by the Durham Public Library. Tonight, I'd like to highlight the library's outreach to the Durham residents living at Riverwoods. Many of our residents no longer drive. Some have trouble with their sight. The DPL literally brings the library to them on a regular basis in the form of a good selection of books, many in the large print format, and Cheryl has already told you how expensive those are. So it's a really important service to our residents. If we reserve books, library staff delivers them to us if we request it. They also assist our residents with getting copies of books for our 5 book discussion groups. We are a community that reads. I often hear how helpful library staff is when residents need help using Libby, Hoopla, or Library of Congress Talking Books, or other sources of online information, and we do use them. I have always believed that the local library is the heart of a community. This one is no exception. Speaking for my fellow residents at Riverwoods, we love our library. Please support it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Linda Johnson, 4 Bucks Hill Road. I am a retired university librarian, and I'm a very active member of the Durham Public Library Friends Group, mostly involved with the bookstore, the book sales, book donations, and other things. I'd like to share some of the things I've noticed in the library. I'm a heavy library user, also the book group, but I often see mothers coming in to bring their young children to the early morning programs. At the same time, the child is often returning or checking out a large stack of books. I see the middle schoolers come pouring in after school is over to visit with friends, study, attend a program, someone checking out a telescope, and how often I've seen the parking lot filled to capacity for a program. I've also been a member of several groups that have used the meeting rooms, which are really helpful. I'm thanking you for the opportunity of coming here tonight to share just a few of my ideas. I have to tell you, speaking at a public, large group like this, being recorded is way out of my comfort level, but I never questioned that I would come tonight to be able to tell you what an excellent resource the Durham Public Library is, that I hope that you can reconsider any budget cuts to the library. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Susan Wagner. I live at 10 Edendale Lane. I am a retired librarian as well. But in 2019, I was called upon to serve as the interim director of the Durham Public Library for 5 months while the library pursued getting a full-time librarian. And I've been a trustee of the library since 2021. We're fortunate to live in a community where education is a valued commodity, and the library has received good financial support from the town in the past. In addition to a very good school system and university, Durham also benefits from a well-read and educated retirement community who live on fixed incomes. As you know, those incomes are being challenged at every turn: groceries, utilities, healthcare, and especially in New Hampshire, taxes, not the least of which is the rise in Durham's property taxes. Realizing that the town is also challenged by reductions of available grant funds and the rising costs of doing business, DPL felt it was important to submit a very modest proposed 2026 budget, as you know. But I understand that at last Monday night's meeting, budget work session, the town's allocations to the library, specifically the allocations for the children's and adults' print book collections, were cut by almost $19,000 without input from the library. It's unrealistic to think that DPL can simply cut line items. Recently released and best-selling print books are among the most requested and circulated items in the library, especially among those seniors who bear the tax burden that cannot afford to purchase new titles at prices of $20 to $30 for fiction and $25 to $30 and up for nonfiction. These materials cannot be borrowed via the state's ILL system, generally for a period of at least 6 months after publication, since they're reserved for the town's own patrons at that time. In addition to new titles, DPL is also purchasing replacement copies of older popular materials, as well as new editions of nonfiction titles such as popular travel guides and books on technology. So the collections budgets are already stretched thin. The library cannot simply rely on the older materials to satisfy our residents. Consequently, any budget reduction must come from other line items in the budget. Most likely, staff hours, digital resources, subscriptions like Hoopla, and or perhaps library open hours, at a time when Durham town residents are requesting even more materials and open hours for using the library's popular community rooms. Therefore, I respectfully request that the funding that was cut last Monday evening be restored to the town's 2026 allocation to the library. Without these funds, it is a slippery slope to continue down the path of inadequately funding one of Durham's most treasured resources. To quote the late Walter Cronkite, "Whatever the cost of our libraries, the price is cheap compared to that of an ignorant nation."
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Willem DeVries. I also live at 10 Edendale Lane, but I am not a retired librarian. However, I was raised on a weekly visit to the public library until, due to various factors, I had to, with my family, move down south. And it stopped. Why? Because the town we moved to, a town at that time just slightly smaller than Manchester, well more than Durham has, had no public library. Why? Because the library it did have was for whites only. That sent a clear message about what kind of situation we were in. I was lucky. My mother's a college teacher. I got to use the college library. I did not have to suffer from that. But other people did. And not only the residents of the town, but by being the largest town in the U.S. without a public library, this town sent a clear message about what was important to it. So I want you to think seriously about what it does when you start cutting what many people have pointed out is the heart of a library, the book acquisition budget. What does that send to the world, to people who might want to move here, to businesses that might want to locate here, about what it is that Durham cares about? Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Beth Newkirk of 40 Mill Pond Road. For transparency, I am a trustee now, but I'm not coming to speak as a trustee tonight. I'm speaking as a resident of Durham who just loves this library a lot, and I'm sure I'm not the only person who does in Durham. People have spoken tonight about most of the things I had in my head to say, but I will add one thing. I think in the last several years, through the outreach programs, through hard work of the staff, and yes, through funding, this library has moved from becoming a very good town library to being an exceptional one. And I think it is a library that's well respected and enjoyed by the people of Durham. It's become a real center in this community that lacks a lot of centers for different people. And all are felt welcome there and respected and are given really good service. You spoke on Monday night. I watched the televised version of the work session. You spoke about care for essential services, which I know in terms of government are fire, police, public works. But I would argue that the library is an essential service to this community for making us feel a part of a community and for enriching our lives. So I hope you will consider putting the funding back in that allows the library to do that work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marty Goose, 9 Meadow Road in Durham. I'm not a librarian, though I'm related to several. I've been using the library since it was at the university, when it was downtown, when we went through several heads of our library. And I can't tell you, over the 40-some-odd years I've been here, I've never seen such a well-run, well-thought-out, practical, and very frugal to maintain the quality that we have. Having been on school board and stuff like that, I know how hard budgets are. But balancing the heart of our community and the number of people it serves in so many different ways, we have to think of that, because this, while the other thing serves everybody, this doesn't, and it's really small. We do a lot of fundraising, but you only can ask people to give so many times a year. And we do have generous givers, but it's not enough to cover our budget of what you are suggesting. I was surprised that there was a vote during the working session. Usually something like that is just when you're doing the votes on it. And I hope you will listen to these people and the people in the public who really, really care about this and use it and need it. And it would be a shame to have to cut some of our services and some of our outlying things that people rely on, because the children, the elderly, those that can't drive, it's just an amazing service, and the people on our staff work incredibly hard. You're getting more bang for your buck than you could almost anywhere. So I hope you would reconsider this necessary part of our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joe Warzen. I live at 102 Madbury Road. I'm also a trustee in the library, and the community is very lucky to have the trustees that they do have. I'm a new member to it. I don't have any library experience, but the wealth of experience that they have, it's something very good for this community. I don't really have much to say that they didn't already say. Like Cheryl, I hope she cleared up a lot of the misconceptions that you guys had about funding to the library and what the budget cuts would do. I think I have young kids. We're heavy library users. It is an essential part of this community, and I think next to the school system here, it's something that makes Durham very attractive to people wanting to move here. So I think that's pretty much all I said. Like I said, I don't have much to add. But yeah, so thank you.
Thank you.
There's nobody on Zoom with their hand up at this time?
Would anybody else in the audience like to speak?
Yeah, I'm John Oitman at 22 Deer Meadow Road. I want to switch topics a bit and move away from the library. So you guys mobilized. It was great. But I wanted to talk more about property taxes, so if that's okay. So I'm a resident here since 2020, and if I look at my property taxes, I think they've increased 56% in that time period. I'm a shoreline owner, so I live on the water. So, and I've read all the Friday updates, and I understand the information about, valuation of the land versus valuation of the buildings, and I understand all these things. But it troubles me that, if I look at the assessment valuations, I can't find correlative data that actually aligns with how you've assessed my property. And so I'm trying to understand, how are we, gauging these increases? How are we managing these dollars? I managed organizations of, $50 million to $250 million, and I was asked every single year, cut 10%, every year. And did we do it every year? Yes. Was it painful? Yes. But I'm trying to figure out, and I'm not in depth in what your budget line items are, so I have to admit that. But I'm just trying to figure out, how can we not have reasonable taxation that provides good services to our community? I mean, we heard the great services of the library. I mean, it was called exceptional, a model in our area. So $18,000, big number for their new books line item. But can we figure out a way of continuing to get new books, yet finding the $18,000 somewhere else? This is the trade-off. I don't understand how we can't figure out, legitimate taxation that drives value in the organization, or value in our community. So I'll say that. I know there's lots of other people that want to talk, so I just thought I would kick it off with a very high-level commentary.
Thank you.
How's everybody doing? My name's Colin Maples. I live at 17 Orchard Drive. This is my first time here. I'm also concerned about the tax increases. I moved to Durham in 2019. It's been a great place to live. I grew up in Hanover, New Hampshire, and I just
Can you get closer to the mic, sir?
Yep.
You can raise it up, maybe.
Too tall. I grew up in Hanover, New Hampshire, and obviously Dartmouth is there. We have UNH here, and I see a lot of similarities between sort of unsustainable taxation. And so I just wrote down some basic bullet points that I'll read. So there's tax-based stagnation, right? Growth in the tax base has been more or less neglected as I see it, and that's continuing to drive ongoing tax challenges. So I think we need to focus on attracting businesses and not necessarily dissuading them from coming to set up shop in Durham. State education funding. The lack of state funding impacts all towns, and I think the council needs to adopt this reality. A continuous tax hike is unsustainable and risks lowering property values over time. Homebuyer priorities. People choose where to live for diverse reasons beyond just the schools, the recreation, or the conservation space. These do not justify unchecked tax increases. Expense management. I think the big thing for me, if I look at the budget for 26, we're looking at, I think, above 15%. And I don't think that that's sustainable. I think we should target to grow more in line with inflation, which is currently at 3% or below. And I think we need to look at cost-saving opportunities that we shouldn't miss, whether it's the library, whether it's other things. We need a way to drive more efficient spending. That's all I got.
Colin?
Yep.
What was your last name?
Naples.
Naples, like
Yep.
the city?
Like the city, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good evening. Steve Eck, 16 Cedar Point Road. I thought it might be helpful to create a visual of what the year-over-year tax increase looks like. I don't know if anybody else enjoys graphs, but to see a radical step change like that in the year-over-year percent, and this is year-over-year dollar increase, that is worth drilling down into. And I don't believe we have enough transparency to understand why is there such a dramatic step change year over year. It's 38% for me, and just eavesdropping in the lobby, there's going to be people with a lot bigger numbers than that. One thing to consider, waterfront properties, typically we don't have access to water or sewer. We're on our own pump, we're on our own well. A material part of your budget is in water and septic services, which we get no benefit from. So I'm also very concerned that I've read somewhere that this is part of a multi-year program or project. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if this is year one of the multi-year program, I'm going to have to move to a town and I'll look for one with a very well-funded library. Thank you.
I'm sorry, could we have your name again?
Yes. Steve Eck.
And I
How do you
just want-
spell it?
EK.
Thank you.
I just wanted to provide a point of clarification, and thank you, Steve, for your comment. But I do want to note that the water and sewer budgets are separate from the town budget. And in fact, those budgets currently contribute a little bit to the general revenue.
I saw that.
So to a certain degree, people who are on town water and sewer are actually
They're
paying into
I understand
the tax base for everyone else and lowering their prices. Okay. So.
Hi, my name is Dave Kendall, K-J-E-N-D-A-L. I live at 8 Willie Creek Road with my wife Cheryl. We've been residents of Durham for 10 years. And we moved here because of the quality of life, because of the spot that we had and the way that the town, was structured and worked. Being here with the university, I've been a member of some of the advisory boards at the IOL, things like this over that time. I'm a chief technology officer at a startup in Portsmouth and have been doing that for basically 11, 12 years, something like that. I'll drop a worse number. So my property taxes went up 65% this year. And I have two pieces of property. One is a small lot that, if the Conservation Committee's proposal goes through, is unbuildable. And that one went up 2,000%. So I would like to see some transparency around where those numbers come from as well. And as was said before me, it's unsustainable. And if we look at what I read, maybe I have it incorrect, but I read here, this is just the start. So we're going to go up 25% more is the plan over the next 2 years. As someone else just said, that means we will need to move. There's no question about it. We've been here for 10 years, we love it, but that is not sustainable. I live in a neighborhood, so that's the Colony Cove neighborhood. Several of my neighbors are not here today, so if I can speak a little on their behalf, many of them are retired, and this will have a dramatic impact on them. And I think it's a real challenge to change the nature of the town, which is what it will be doing, to force people to move out of the town because of tax policy that's here. I want to just put a few more sentences on the Conservation Committee as well. So there was, the meetings that I've been, very, very strong negative feedback on that. It does not appear that there was reasonable science applied to it. The recommendations are way out of line with what all the other communities in the area are doing. And it is also going to have a negative impact on people's decisions to move here and to stay here as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Evening. My name is James Rogers. My wife and I live at 21 Deer Meadow Road. We moved to Durham in 2021 and have 3 young boys who will eventually attend the schools but are not there yet. We moved to Durham for many reasons. We found it to be full of warm, thoughtful residents who genuinely care about their neighbors and community. We chose to raise our children here and viewed this as our forever home. When we bought our house, our annual property tax bill was about $34,000. That was already a very large amount, but it had been quite stable for more than 10 years prior, so we felt we were making an informed decision to join a community that could keep costs controlled. We accepted the cost because we believed in the town. As of our most recent bill, we are now being asked to pay over $48,000 per year, a 39% increase in less than 5 years. That's $4,000 per month in property taxes alone, and under the currently proposed budgets, it is clearly headed much higher. I've become friendly with residents of all ages, and there is a common refrain. While neighboring towns are thriving as places to eat, drink, shop, and gather, Durham feels stagnant. Almost everyone I know talks about spending their money elsewhere. We've lost services as basic as a pharmacy, and there are very few non-college oriented establishments. This isn't just a quality of life issue, it directly affects the tax base. Multiple neighbors have told me they are considering leaving because of the growing cost burden while feeling they receive little in return. At some point, this stops being a discussion about preferences and becomes a question of manageability. Household incomes simply are not growing at anything close to the rate Durham's budget continues to grow. I support strong schools and a town that meaningfully supports its residents. That's why we moved here. But I am concerned that Durham is placing an increasingly heavy burden on existing homeowners while simultaneously limiting new sources of tax base and economic activity. If we continue to restrict new development while expanding long-term spending commitments, the math will not work. I am not asking the town to abandon its values. I'm asking it to slow spending growth, defer non-essential projects, and seriously consider how fiscal sustainability and economic vitality fit into Durham's future, so that families like mine can afford to stay here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, thanks for having me. Bruce Fenton from Durham Point. Just quickly, I want to talk a little bit about, sort of broad philosophy on taxes, and then I'll talk a little bit about my own personal situation, and then I'll talk a little bit about economics. So I think it's really important to remember in these discussions the broad philosophical point that taxes are gathered by force and threat of force. And if people don't pay, you send men with guns, and you put them in a cage, and you take their stuff, and you'll send an MRAP down the street. So we all love libraries, we love these kind of things, and I hear the pleas almost as if they're talking to a benevolent uncle or aunt, like, hey, please do this. It's not your money, though. What they're really asking you to do is say, please use your power of government to exert force and violence on others and make them pay. And you say, you either pay, or we throw you in jail, or you get out of town. And we just had, 4 people say that they're considering leaving. So I think it's important for you to have to remember that moral point. These are not voluntary things. You are not the benevolent uncles and aunts. You have the power of government. If this was voluntary, nobody would be here. We just wouldn't. We wouldn't pay. Nobody would pay. You'd have a couple $100,000 donation budget, and that's what you'd have to work with. You have the power because you have the ability to order the police chief to go and send an MRAP and armed soldiers to someone's house and take it from them. That's what you have the power to do, and it's important to remember that moral choice that you have. You are these are not collected voluntary. They're collected under threat of force, and the only alternative is what people said here. They're not going to put up a fight. They're just going to leave, and that's a very, very heavy burden. And in my opinion, philosophically, I'm against almost all of this kind of spending. I see a town that's addicted to spending. I look around this room, I see quad monitors that aren't being used. I see all kinds of fancy cameras and things like that. I see a lot of burden that's being taken from the taxpayers. So in my personal situation, I'm a pretty private person, but I guess I'll share this. My taxes are now $5,800 per month, $70,000 a year. So, and I worked my whole life to buy this place. It's a wonderful place. I'm blessed to have a beautiful home on Durham Point. If I were to die today, now that home was held by one family for 150 years, and then another for 150 years, and then another, and then we bought it. I'd like to hold it for 150 years. But if I died today, my children will have to make $110,000 just to pay the taxes. They won't even be able to eat. They need to make $200,000 just to pay the taxes and be able to eat, and that's assuming no increases. So I'm a newcomer to this town. I've only been here 8 years. I've paid $510,000 to you. You can't look at me in the eye and say that that's not my fair share. No, Bruce, you got to pay more. Do you really? I mean, we're very fortunate to be able to even do that. Most people can't even do that burden. Do you really want to send a message and say, oh, Durham is only for hedge fund managers or crypto billionaires or, extremely successful entrepreneurs? It's just so far out of line, and it's so much more than really almost anybody in the country. You're well above the average for the country. You're well above New Hampshire. Other towns are able to do it for much, much less. And that brings me to the third point. You may not care about my own situation. I hope you do, and I hope you care about people who are less fortunate than me, because they're the ones who are going to be much harder than I do. I'll reluctantly go ahead and pay my $70,000 a year, but there's a lot of people who will be pushed right out of town who can't do that. And I hope you care about them, and I think you should care about the greater moral implications that these are not voluntary. They're backed by force and violence. But even if you disagree with me on those two things, My field is money. Even my greatest enemies think that I understand money. I understand economics. I've gone all over the world and advised on economics. And I can tell you from an economic standpoint, these things are not good. It doesn't help growth. It doesn't help the town. It causes people to leave. Durham has a terrible reputation because you take so much money from everybody in this room. You have this very heavy-handed planning and zoning situation where it has a reputation people don't want to do business here. And that hurts everybody. The best thing economically, aside from my philosophical opinions, I know that the best thing economically is to let your fellow citizens trust them to have the money. Trust them to put the money where they want to do it, and they will do a good job. Let them vote with their own money. Don't use the power of force and violence to take from them and give it to, all kinds of lavish things. This can be cut. If you give more power to the people, I promise you, you'll have better economic situation, and it's also the moral high ground and the moral way to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rita Mason from 6 Denbow Road. I'll say that differently. We've lived in our home for 15 years. I got unemployed this year because tariffs are about to kill a small business in New Hampshire. If we can't pay our tax bill, the home we built for 15 years could be taken away from us. We could lose our home, right? This is not an immediate issue for our household, but long term, yes, seeing the increasing in spending and not countering that with figuring out new revenues, this is a growing concern that a couple of years from now, we're going to have people losing their homes over this. And a bigger concern of who can afford to buy these homes and cut the thousands of dollars a month on middle class incomes. I was an executive for that company during the pandemic. Our business dropped off by 90%. We had to do crazy things to stay in business. We laid off half of our team. The remaining employees took a 10 to 20% pay cut until we could get to the other side. We got to the other side. We've renegotiated pay this year. Our library is talking about an $18,000 budget gap that they're trying to close to take care of seniors and kids. $18,000 is like only 10% of the annual compensation for our town administrator. So I do have thoughts about, are we being really judicious with our money? I'm glad we're being competitive with salaries, but this is a really nice town to work for. I think I share concerns with many people in this room about the transparency. I've heard talk about upwards of $1 million being kind of clouded in where it's been spent. So that's about all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Joe Ullman. I live at 23 Cedar Point, and I'm glad things are getting heated. So I was going to try to take the real high ground. I was dismayed and outraged at the 14% increase in my tax bill this month. Now, I've never had any doubt that our taxes were going to go up since I moved here from Maine in 2016, although on net, compared to living in Maine, it had worked to my advantage while I was working. But now that I'm retired, along with a good number of my neighbors, and we all knew after the recent reassessment that despite the town's proclamations that they'd adjust the mill rate and keep taxes relatively stable, that higher taxes were coming. When we moved here in 2016, our taxes were $10,000, and now they're $15,000. We've gone up 45%. It's nothing compared to what I'm hearing here tonight, which is shocking. But this is getting close to the last straw, and I think it shows contempt for your taxpayers or your citizens or your residents or whatever you call us, deplorables, I don't know. You view us as a willing cornucopia of resources for whatever programs and services you want to add. The last set of town minutes, a resident proposed a salaried land stewardship coordinator to ensure a steady flow of tourists into Durham. Are you kidding me? Another salaried benefits position? Tourism? What are they going to do? Come watch you blow the dam? Have you looked around recently? I mean, prices are increasing since COVID for everything, has already been outlined, except thankfully gasoline, grocery services, healthcare, insurance. The well-to-do may not be hurting as much, but this stuff is slamming the middle class, and that's the way it always goes. And on our street, we have welders, retail store managers, musicians, nurses, and a bunch of teachers, in addition to retirees. You may think a 14% increase is manageable for the wealthy, but it's eventually going to drive those neighbors, as Mr. Daly said in the last town minutes, to look elsewhere. So despite the underlying sense among liberal governments that taxes are an equalizer, it's a method for social activism, punishment for success, just a just form of redistribution, the fact is you can burn and raise, R-A-Z-E, the wealthy for just so long before that pile of money is exhausted. And then as a fait accompli, you're going to have to attack the middle class. And it seems like that's what you want. As Margaret Thatcher said, the problem with socialism is that you eventually run out of other people's money. When you do, there will likely be flight from Durham. I would love to leave this town. I waited 20 years to move here from Maine. I love New Hampshire, but we have kids here. We have a beautiful home. I'm 70. I'm not going to be around that long. I'm going to tolerate this as long as I can. But, you know, people are going to move. They're going to move to Newington. They're going to move to Milton or Rochester, and they'll gentrify those areas, and Durham's going to languish. With the last assessment, one longtime resident of Durham told me he had a $50,000 increase in his bill because of a large new home that was built nearby that elevated the comps. Without some last-minute dealing, he would have had to have left his family home nearly 100 years. While I was reading some of the other negative comments about this issue on Facebook, one person said that her taxes now exceed her Social Security income. How do you guys sleep at night? We don't care about a high level of services. No one I've talked to on Cedar Point is giddy about this increase. I'm not even sure what the services are. I mean, renovating a house on Wagon Hill, cute signs in parks reminding us that in the near future we're going to be underwater, riddled with malaria, causing mosquitoes. I mean, all right, we have a nice transfer station, but every time I use it, I still have to pay a fee in addition to what my taxes cover. We have good police. We have minimal crime. I'm not even going to go into the library. We have good schools, but none of us on Cedar Point have town water. Many of my neighbors are dumping tens of thousands of dollars into reverse osmosis systems, and none of us have sewer. But that's all we need is basic services. And to a person in my neighborhood, everyone I've spoken to is livid about these tax increases. We're making do with less. You need to as well. You need to cut back on spending. It was nice while it lasted, but the spigot is tightening up, and a lot of your citizens are struggling. I don't know if the town has a motto, but if you keep this up, I'm going to suggest let them eat cake.
Good evening. Barrett Miles at 9 Mathis Cove Road. Moved to town in 2021 with my wife, and we just had one child at the time. Now we have two. And we came here from Dover, drawn by the schools, and for a lot of the reasons that were already mentioned, I won't go into. And I have some prepared remarks, but just at this point, you know, Dover has also had increases, but more manageable increases in the 5% range over time. So, you know, hindsight's 20/20, but if I'm getting comparable services in Dover as I am in Durham, but the only draw card is the school, at this point you start to do the math on these increases, and it's like, well, I would have been better off staying in Dover and just sending my kids to private school at this point if you look at the long-term economics that were spelled out. But I'm here tonight, you know, with the concern that everyone else has about the growing impact on affordability and access in our town. It's come to my attention from others that the town council needs to hear from more people and more residents who are opposed to the continued double-digit increases or greater than average annual inflation numbers like 3% that have already been cited for the town portion of our property tax bill. Again, in the 4 years I've been a resident, my bill's increased nearly 50% of my 2021 bill. It's gone from about $9,000 annually to $14,000. I recognize the town portion is only part of that change, but let's work together on areas that we can control. I'd urge the town council to evaluate more meaningful ways to reduce spending, explore new ideas, and as mentioned, welcome commercial businesses to Durham to diversify our tax base. And I realize that part's easier said than done, but that starts with planning and zoning, looking at things that haven't been explored before. I think there's opportunity to collaborate more deeply with the residents and the tax base, clearly. Because we're too reliant on residential property taxes to fund our services. And again, my view, and I think the view of many in this room, is the increases shouldn't exceed 3 to 4%, and the budget should maintain a flatter structure, avoid elective projects and excessive budget increases until the tax base could be expanded to help offset those costs. It would help to see just, again, more survey, more involvement, people speaking out in the community, because it sounds like a lot of the sentiment that's shared and people talking with friends and neighbors isn't being conveyed to the folks in this room that make those decisions, which is why I'm here tonight. missing bedtime with my kids, and that's why you don't see a lot of people in our age demographic able to come to these types of open forums. But here we are. So again, one suggestion would be to generate a digital survey to hear from more residents. I know there was talk about doing some emailing. Let's get some more community engagement and collaborate on ways that we can reduce spending so we don't continue to push all this burden onto the residents and stagnate economically. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Aaron Gruder. I'm a resident at 22 Cedar Point, as well as some of my other neighbors here tonight. I don't have too much to add from what others have been saying. I just wanted to kind of make a couple points. So one is I've been a resident here since 2020. When I came here, our taxes were $18,000. They're now $41,000. We had some property improvements that drove some of that increase, but still, pretty big jump there. So. And like others have said, just not sustainable to continue at those types of increases. Second, I was on the Zoom call on the last council meeting, and somebody made a comment about, of course, taxes are going to increase as property values increase, and I think we all understand that, and we sign up for that living in New Hampshire. But I'd just like to remind you that these are still kind of unrealized gains that we have in these homes, and when we see property tax increases at this rate as a result of the market value assessments that are being done, this is not liquid assets that are available to people to just pay taxes with, right? These are unrealized gains. I don't get taxed on my IRA accounts, as unrealized gains, and I understand that there's got to be some of that with property taxes, but just keep that in mind that this is not like liquid assets that people have availability for to just go and write checks for 14 or 8% increases every year. So. I just ask and plead with the others here that we kind of consider that and consider that these continued increases as painful on a lot of people within the town. And I hear from all of our neighbors and other people in town as well that they're looking to move on and looking to look at other towns as a result of what's happening here. So just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi folks, Tom Daly, 190 Piscataqua Road. So if you read the weekly updates from the town of Durham, you would know that valuations of our properties were going up. And you also would have read some bullet points that your tax rates would be going down. I have some data, courtesy of Darcy Freer in the assessing office, that I want to share to see if this statement holds true. If valuation goes up, the tax rate goes down, and let's see what the numbers net out to be. So courtesy of Darcy, there are 2,045 single-family residences in the town of Durham. Of 2,045 single-family residences, 43 of them had their tax bills go down by more than 3%. 75 of those had their tax bills what we consider to be flat. That's a change of negative 3% up to plus 3%. 1,927 single-family homes had their tax bills increase by more than 3% out of 2,045. 1,927 over 2,045. I don't think this is sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Matt Carrico, 36 Dover Road. I've been a lifelong resident of this town. Grew up here, graduated Oyster River, class of 1988. Lived on 8 Old Landing Road, 39 Emerson, 18 Denbo. When I moved my family back here after college, we moved to Madbury briefly, and then we lived on 38 Sandy Brook, and we've just moved to 36 Dover Road. In the 5 years that we've been at Dover Road, our taxes, well, not in the 5 years, in the last 2 years, our tax bill just went up 100% on our house. Don't know that anybody, think I'm the winner on the, on the increase of taxes. It is absolutely unsustainable for me. Like I said, I've lived in this town my entire life. I can't live here anymore. This tax bill is going to send me out of town. Pains me greatly to say that, but it's just the fact. I do not have the money to be able to take a hit like that and see another, am I hearing 18% or something like that for next year also? It's not going to happen. I'm going to have to move. So I just want you all to know that these are the real consequences of the spending that's going on in this town. I could add a whole lot on what I think about all of it and what I think about the budgets, but I think that should just speak for itself. I've heard, and I'd like this addressed, I've heard that the tax rate is not going to go up on rental income properties in the house or in the town. Is this true, or am I hearing misinformation?
No, the tax rate is the tax rate for everybody, all property owners in town. It's simply
No, but the valuations on
the
rental income properties?
The rental income property market has softened, and so those values have not risen at the same level as residential properties in the current market conditions.
Well, so why are we, the town residents, carrying the burden of a business idea that's not profitable right now? I can, people who are owning those rental properties, if they're not making that much money off of them, should maybe get another business. I know as a private business owner myself, I never got any tax break or help from any town because my profits were decreasing year by year. I just don't know why we should be subsidizing what's essentially a private venture like that. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just, could I kind of address that a little bit?
This is for the public. If it's a brief comment, but this is really for public comment.
I want to say that I think we all hear you, and to provide a little context and to maybe add a little additional information to what Todd stated is that the state of New Hampshire really restricts sort of how we can look at property taxes, and it is the exact same rate per $1,000 of assessed value, no matter the type of property, and so it really is tied to what the market value is for any property. And so it's true, if your real estate, if your business is essentially a real estate business and it is, say, student rentals, then the value of your business is entirely tied to what the market value of your property is. And what the state of New Hampshire is seeing across the board is increased residential values. And I absolutely share that those are painful. They're hard for my family. We've had a 40% increase as well. And I've been trying to look really hard at the budget, so I hear people's points. But the state of New Hampshire is really what restricts us in terms of, the way that our tax structure in the state is set up. It all falls on property taxes. It is equal across the board. Who that hurts the most is single-family residences, especially in this market. And there is nothing that we can change about the state structuring of taxes. And the fact is that real estate has a certain benefit that, their business value goes down, their property taxes go down, and that is unfair compared to other businesses. That is how the state of New Hampshire has set it up. Is that helpful?
If I have 2 bedrooms in my house that are empty right now, can I declare them as UNH rental income?
It's all based on the
and that are not being filled right now?
It's all based on what the market would pay for your property.
Okay.
And that, I hope that helps a little bit.
I just also just really wonder how, 2 years ago when my property was assessed, I have a beautiful place on the river. I love it. It was my sort of dream place. We've been building it back up. 2 years ago, that river was there. That property has not changed in one bit. I can tell you that the fair market value of my house, which apparently is what is driving this whole thing, the fair market value of my house, all the comps that I've seen and places that have been for sale and or assessed or that are sitting on the market unsold right now that are comps to mine, are way out of line with what I'm being taxed. I just don't see how 2 years ago it could be a certain amount and 2 years later, I don't care what the market is doing, my house did not go up 100% in value, like you guys say it did. But I guess I'm stuck with that because there's nothing I can do.
Well, I would just note that there is an appeal process. It's called the abatement process. And if you believe that the town has made an error in your valuation, which is possible, the assessing office does their very best with the data at hand, but there are unique qualities to every property, then you can file a formal abatement application by March 1st of 2026. And that would trigger a review locally first, and that might or may not result in some relief. If it doesn't, or if it doesn't result in the relief you believe is appropriate given your understanding of your property, you can appeal that to the next step, which would be either to the state superior court or to the state board of tax and land appeals. And in that case, you'd have an independent tribunal, or a judge, who would value your data and the town's data and make a determination. But basically, the town is obligated to assess all properties and of properties of different classifications based upon the fair market value. And in some cycles, different classifications of properties change. So sometimes commercial is very strong. That was the case maybe 10 years ago when the university had more students and they were not in a decline of enrollment. In some cycles, it's residential properties. 2 years ago, it was many of the smaller properties in the downtown core, Baghdad Road, the Faculty Road neighborhood that saw the largest increase. 15 years ago or so, it was waterfront properties that saw an increase, but then they received some relief based upon subsequent revaluation. So in this cycle, waterfront owners, particularly on the saltwater portion of the Oyster River, saw the largest increase, and that's driven solely by market data that the assessing office and the consulting firm the town contracted with assessed, evaluated to try to assign fair values. So it's in essence a redistribution of the tax burden based upon prevailing market conditions.
Thank you.
No, that's enough. That's enough. But this is for the public to make their comments.
Hey, I'm Michael Mordo. I live out on Adams Point, and I've written you all some emails, so this is the face that goes with the name. I just had a quick point to follow up on your point, and I think it really points to the fiduciary duty that this group has to the taxpayers and to the folks that live in town. If your hands are tied, and I believe they are to some extent, based on revaluations, and that's a fixed number and it's not a variable, then I think it's even more, important that we be thoughtful in terms of what we do with the budget. That is a variable you control. That's the variable that will determine the mill rate that valuation is multiplied by. And so I think that, you kind of make a point that reinforces the importance of the deliberations and the thoughtfulness that goes into what stays in the budget, what comes out of the budget, and what the trade-offs are. So, as you guys think about that, I'm sure you've thought about it. You've obviously deliberated quite a bit about it up until this meeting or whatever. But I think it highlights nicely, how all this is really in your hands.
Thank you.
Hello, Justin Zymitz, 26 Mathis Cove Road. My family and I just moved to Durham. We saw a 70% increase in our taxes this year. and I share the same concerns everybody here about the sustainability of that. What I'd like to focus on is a longer-term picture here. The town has clearly identified stagnant tax base driven in part by limited new construction. Addressing that challenge requires more than an annual budget adjustments. It also requires examining how our zoning, regulatory, and building standards affect housing feasibility and tax base growth over time. Durham has adopted the most stringent building and energy codes in the state of New Hampshire. It is also advancing the most restrictive shoreline setback regulations in the state. Each of these policies may be well-intentioned on its own, but together they materially increase development costs, limit housing feasibility, and constrain reinvestment. Durham rightly prides itself on progressive values and inclusiveness, but there is a growing disconnect between those values and the practical outcomes of our policies. When housing costs increase faster than incomes, when regulatory barriers compound, and when taxes increase well above inflation year after year, the result is non-inclusivity, is increasing exclusivity. Over time, these conditions favor only those with the highest financial capacity and make it harder for young families, workers, and long-term residents to remain in or move into the community. When housing supply is constrained and costs continue to rise, affordability declines, and the tax burden becomes increasingly concentrated on the existing homeowners. That dynamic directly contributes to the pressure we're seeing in this year's budget and will continue to do so unless addressed. This is not about choosing growth over conservation or efficiency, it's about balance. Communities that successfully manage tax pressure pair careful budgeting and zoning and regulatory frameworks that support appropriate housing development and long-term fiscal sustainability. I respectfully encourage the council to continue its important budget work while also closely examining zoning, regulatory, and code-related levers that affect housing production, reinvestment, and affordability. These tools matter just as much as line item decisions if you want to change the trajectory we're on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Ben Bulkley. Nancy and I live at 569 Bay Road. We built our home in 2011, 2012. We removed a number of problems related to shoreline to clean that up. We're very happy with this very energy efficient home in Durham, but you're hearing obviously a lot of concern and disappointment in these increases. A couple of questions. The people who will move in to the vacant homes that are left behind, who can write a $50,000 or $70,000 check, are they going to want to support the $18,000 increases in the library? It's probably not them showing up at this meeting. It's probably the people they hire, and it won't be the people that come here. It'll also be the people they send to have very straight discussions with you about any kind of spending. So I think one question is, what kind of people will be coming into this town when they have to write $44,000 checks, $70,000 checks, $100,000 checks? Are you prepared for that? I find it interesting also that at this meeting tonight, you're deciding whether or not to spend $1.5 million on the restoration of the house at Wagon Hill, at least as I understood the agenda.
No, that was
last year.
that was decided last year.
Okay, so that was decided last year.
Yeah.
Juxtapose that decision with spending $18,000 here. Good job, by the way. I'd much rather spend it on the $18,000 than I would on the $1.5 million, because those $1.5 million decisions are creating the crowding problem, the crowding out problem that you're seeing here tonight. To me, the problem in the budget is not the $18,000. The problem is we're losing non-tax and tax revenues. And what disappoints me in the process is, why are we talking about $18,000 problems and not generating new growth? Where is that discussion? Where is that discussion? Where is it? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mike Lerman, 20 Cedar Point Road. A few thoughts on this. Some of you might possibly be thinking, you know, the state pushes this tax burden down on the local towns. It's all true, absolutely. Some of you have probably fought against it. I know some of you have. But you are faced, like every other town, with dealing with that problem. You're not unique. So you have a responsibility, a fiscal responsibility, to try and manage the things you can. And as you've heard the comments here tonight, first of all, I will give a shout out to the gentleman in the red and white check shirt because he speaks much more eloquently than I do. And I give a ditto to everything he said. I've said before, you know, you don't hear much from people, and all of a sudden you are getting a little bit of a vibe from people. And I just want to point out again, most of this budget activity is taking place between Thanksgiving and Christmas. People do have other things that are on their mind, and they don't necessarily focus. So when you think about the fact that, oh, we send out the weekly update on Friday, I've asked this question, Todd knows this, we've had front of the conversation on it. It's like, how many people read it? How many people understand it? They get a tax bill, oh, that they start to understand, and all of a sudden, quickly, you get a response. So one of the things I'm going to ask is that I urge you to think about, the school board is not doing their public hearing for their budget until mid-January. I think it's the 14th. You have time to reconsider your budget. So despite all the things that you're limited by, that you have this problem where the state has pushed all these expenses down to towns, there's two things you can control. You can control the spending in the town, and you can control the development. Last spring, I sent a letter to this council, and I was urging you to prioritize the highest priority of increasing the tax base. And if my memory is correct, you still kept it like in a middle, moderate to high thing, which to me speaks a lot, if that is correct, that you don't see it as a big problem or something that you can actually control. I think you can have a influence on that. Yep, the planning board does stuff, the zoning board does stuff, whatever, other people are involved in that decision making. But you as the leaders can certainly express the fact that this town needs to develop. We need to be a little looser on what we're doing, and let's have a little more flexibility in what we can develop. On the issue brought up about spending things, and I'm one I've sat here, it's great to have some of these monitors, you can see stuff really good, but you know what? I represent us with the PEAS Noise Compatibility Committee, and I was over in Rye this past spring, and went to their town select board meeting. You go into their meeting, you're sitting on a hard bench, they've got like folding tables is what the board sits at. The town's pretty austere, but you know what? It's a great town. Everybody loves to live in Rye, and it's a pretty wealthy town too. So there are room to sort of tone things down a little bit. You don't have to have the best of everything all the time. One more point that was made earlier with regards to the information that Darcy Freer shared today with Tom Daly, and I know Todd saw that also. Of those 1,927 homes that went up more than 3%, actually all the homes that went up, the average increase of the 1927 was 12+%. So you're hearing from a lot of people that live on the shorefront that are having the biggest increases. But that increase is applying across a large, broad swath. And one thing I would urge you to do, if you want to look at this a little bit forward, is get a cut on that and say, how many are over 12,000? How many are over 18,000? How many are over 24,000? What was the distribution of how many people went up? Because you may have a bunch of people that are getting whacked, and I know people that, oh, yeah, I'd love to come. I can't. They're in Florida right now. Reconsider that. If you adopt the budget tonight, I sent you all letters today, you're going to be looking at between an 8 and 8.7% increase next year, the best I can estimate it. If you looked at the numbers that I sent you, I've bounced these off people. I actually got a response back from Representative Howland today, later, that yeah, the county wants probably a reasonable guesstimate at 4%. Being more conservative and saying the school budget only goes up 5.7%, which is what their general budget increase was, not with the apportionment. Just take the apportionment out of it and stick with the basic. That's still 8%. If the average increase for 1,927 of your 2,100 some odd single-family homeowners was 12% this year, and it's going to be 8% next year, how does that fly? I think there's time for you to reconsider, and I think there's opportunities that perhaps you can find some bigger things that you can either delay, trim, reconsider. And you don't have to be under the gun to pass it tonight. To the best of my knowledge and understanding, you don't have a deadline that the warrant has to be signed anywhere soon today. So I think that's kind of the time to ring the bell.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak?
My name is Heather Smith, 195 Piscataqua Road in Durham. I just want to thank all the people that came tonight, had all the information. It was wonderful to hear. A lot of numbers, a lot of emotion. I'd like to just tug at the heartstrings one more person up at the podium. We are part of a fourth generation on the property that we live on. Little Bay Farm was bought in 1955 by my husband's parents. We have grandchildren on the property now. And these numbers, these property tax increases are so difficult, and I sympathize with everybody, all of us, even sure all of you at the table, as well. But my thought when I got our tax bill was immediately, oh my gosh, I don't think we're going to be able to leave a piece of property to the kids, right? To the grandchildren. So there goes the end of, will there be a fifth generation on the property or not? We try to be a really good neighbor. Our property is open. Most people know that. We keep it mowed, a nice path across Back River Road so that people can walk out there, people can go clamming. People are out there all the time walking, morning, noon, and night, before work, during lunch, after work, walking their dogs, walking their children, enjoying the property. I think a good point was, who are you bringing into the town if we can't stay? We don't have the money, we don't have the income, we never generated that kind of income, we just work hard. We work hard and we try to keep the property open for people to enjoy. Just enjoy it, come enjoy it. I can mow, I can weed whack, I can run a tractor, I can do all of that for you, but I never generated that kind of income, nor did my family. But we're still there. And I'm proud to say that our grandchildren are the fourth generation on the property. And I really, really, really want that to continue. And I would love to see Durham think about those principles, those values. What do we want in terms of our families here in this town? Do we want to, continue that kind of an idea? And ours is a farm. I need you to think about how many farms will you lose, because typically farmers that work properties and have animals, they may be property rich, but let me tell you, they're financially poor. So these kinds of increases, again, they're not sustainable. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Larry Brown. Larry Brown. I live at 112 Piscataqua Road. It struck me as people were talking tonight, there are like two groups here. There are the long-term residents of Durham who've lived here for generations. And then there's a whole group of people that seem to have come here like 2019, 2020, 21. And I'm in that group. We came in 2019, just before COVID. We bought a beautiful house on the river. And when I came here, I have relatives all in the area, none in Durham. And everybody said, oh God, you don't want to move to Durham because Durham's taxes are going to be crazy. We looked at our house, and the taxes had been stable, and as we can afford that, we can make that work. I've had a 60% increase in my taxes. I can still afford to pay them, but I got to tell you, the sort of welcoming nature that I, in my head, imagined Durham to be hasn't played out that way, except maybe at the town dump. I'm sorry, you don't call it the dump, but it's my favorite place in Durham. But that aside from the constant tax increases that are coming, the projections of where it's going, and add the buffer regulations on top of that, the serious overreach on the part of local government of what you're telling me I can or can't do with my property, has really made me sort of just seriously consider, am I willing to continue to make a commitment to be in Durham? I think the answer is very soft at this point. I am not in love with Durham at this point. And I frankly say, I'm retired. Maybe you don't want me here, but you know what? I'm wearing my Gather equipment, not to advertise Gather, but I do volunteer work at Gather. I do a lot of work at Gather, and it's very important stuff. I think that's an important community commitment that I make to the larger area. I'm making no commitment to staying here. I'm one of the people that, watching what you're doing to my property and what you're doing to my right as to what I can do with my property, is just reaching a point that I'm saying, I just don't know that this is worth it. So consider that's what you're doing to your new members, okay? Thank you.
Mr. Brown?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say thanks for coming out and speaking, and to everybody else as well. Thanks for coming out and speaking. I like your hat.
Thank you.
Is there anybody on Zoom?
No, there's nobody with their hand up on Zoom.
Is there anybody else here that would like to say something? We appreciate all of your comments tonight and take them seriously, and we'll be having a conversation about that later.
And I expect that we'll be addressing this, if not during the budget discussion, then during the roundtable. So I hate for people to feel like their comments were not heard and acknowledged. The structure of our meeting, we try and restrict the discussion amongst counselors now based on what people say, but I believe we will address some of the comments we heard tonight at the discussion of the budget and also in the roundtable. So if people are looking for what that discussion is, please look into those sections, whether you stay or tuning in at home. Because I really hate for people to feel like they were not heard. So.
I would like to add that we have to make a decision by December 31st. If we don't make a decision by then, it automatically becomes the budget that we were given on October 31st.
And that is our town
we do have
charter,
we do have a deadline. It is December 31st.
And that comes
It is
from our
December
town charter?
15th.
Yes.
Yeah, it's from their town charter, so.
We might want to point out that there's election coming up. There are four of us.
Can't hear you.
There are four of us leaving, or not leaving, but there are 4 seats open. If anybody you would like to run and find out what it's like to be a leader in this town, I hope someone will step forward and be part of it. I'd also point out that I'm a state representative. I know that this is going on in towns all across the state. The state has pulled back most of the money they used to accord to schools in the towns, and they're putting $100 million into vouchers for people to send their kids to private schools. It's hard to watch, but the freedom movement in New Hampshire would like to do away with public governments, public schools, and I see it in the legislature all the time. That's not to say that what you presented tonight isn't really serious. I built my house 50 years ago, and I won't tell you what percentage it's at now, but thank you for being here tonight. But I hope some of you might consider actually running for office and getting involved in town government. That's the best way to make sure your voice is being heard.
All right. Thank you. So, moving on in our agenda, we have the unanimous consent, and
I would like to pull F from unanimous consent.
yes, and Councilor Ford?
I'd like to pull E.
E. Councilor Welsh?
You're talking about B, right?
I would like to pull B.
B. Are there any others?
I'm sorry, was that B?
B.
Yes.
So 9B, 9E, and 9F are being pulled, and the remaining unanimous consent, excuse me. I will make a motion that...
Could you speak to the microphone? Can't hear you back there.
Is this microphone not working?
Just pull it closer. Just pull it closer.
Hello? Is that better? Okay, sorry about that. So items, I'll repeat that for those that didn't hear it. Items 9B, 9E, and 9F are being pulled from the unanimous consent agenda, and they will be reviewed after a vote that is coming. And I will now move that the town council hereby, upon recommendation of the town assessor and administrator, approve a fiscal year 2026 property tax abatements at the local level or for outstanding appeals before the New Hampshire Superior Court for tax years 2023 and 2024, totaling $460,318.44. And further, that the town council does hereby, upon recommendation of the administrator, award a contract to T. Ford Construction of Georgetown, Mass. in an amount not to exceed $1,517,099 for construction improvements of the Phase 2 Wagon Hill Farm Living Shoreline Project, and authorizes the administrator to sign associated documents. And that the town council does hereby, upon recommendation of the administrator, award a contract to Steamworks of Madbury in New Hampshire in an amount not to exceed $461,570 for engineering services, monitoring, and inspection related to the Phase 2 Wagon Hill Farm Living Shoreline Project, and authorizes the administrator to sign associated documents.
I'll second
There's a
that.
second. So a unanimous consent calls for a vote.
Heather Grant, aye.
Robin vote aye.
M. Friedrichs, aye.
Joe Friedman, aye.
Sonia Dell, aye.
Wayne Burton, aye.
Earl Ford, aye.
Curtis Reister, aye.
Cardin Welsh, aye.
Okay.
And I just wanted to point out, because it came up in public comments, the note about allocating not just 1.5 million, it was stated at the time, but there's an additional 400,000 towards Wagon Hill project. And I want to clarify that what we just voted on is for the shoreline restoration. And Todd, maybe you could fill us in, but how much of that was not covered by grant funds?
Yeah, that project is covered by grant funds.
Except for maybe 15,000
Correct.
of it?
That's
So
right.
essentially, all of that except for 15,000 was received in grants. It is not coming out of the town's budget. So we're not spending taxpayers' money on that 1.5 million. It's actually 1.9 million plus, but only 15,000 of that is coming from town funds. So I just wanted to clarify that because of the public comment.
And now moving on, in Article 9B, I'm going to recommend that we take no action on this and to come back to the council after some additional negotiation by the town after we get some more information. So if everyone's good with that, there'll be no vote, no motion.
I am good with that.
So,
Okay.
Councilor Ford, you brought up E?
E. I just had a question on the new permit fees. If you look at the chart there, on the left, it says work done without a permit. And the fee is a minimum of $100, maximum of 200% of construction cost. That doesn't make any sense to me, so I need it explained what was intended there.
Yeah, so Audrey Klein is with us on Zoom, and I think will be appearing in a moment to talk about that. Here's Audrey.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
Yes, Audrey.
Let me go back to what we have presently and have had before I came on 10 years ago, was the fine for work without a permit was 200% of the expected permit fee. If they were found to have done work without a permit, the permit fee was figured, and then they would pay an additional permit fee fine on top of that, which would be the 200%. Many of the towns around have a base amount of $100, or I can tell you what that is exactly on my chart. But so if somebody, electrician came in and did electrical work, and the value of the permit was $56, they would be charged a minimum of $100. The value of the permit was $300. They would be charged the permit fee of $300 and a fine of $300. And again, that 200% has been in the on the fine schedule since I don't know when, but long before I was here. Yeah. So what I'm suggesting is that they're at
Okay, I get it, except the way it's worded, it says maximum 200% of the construction cost. I don't believe that's what you mean. It's 200% of the construction, of the permit fee
Permit cost.
cost, right?
I see what you're saying. I think that's correct. Our permit fee is based on the construction cost. So I do think that it could be worded better, yes. Would you like to have that change made in this document?
Yeah, sure, just change it so it's clear that it's 200% of the, or what the permit fee should have been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do- do- do-
That makes total sense, yeah.
Do we have a suggestion from anyone how that would read?
Could it be the 200% of the construction permit fee? So a minimum of $100, so it would be either, so what if we said $100 or 200% of the construction permit fee, whichever
Is great.
is greater?
Yes, I believe that would work.
Well, there's, I mean, that doesn't quite do it, I don't believe. Because you're really talking, if you look in the first one, it says that the fee is X per thousand of construction costs, so it'd be double the expected, maybe add the word expected permit fee.
No.
No?
It's the permit fee that they should have paid based on the construction cost.
Right.
I think,
They do,
I think
they
the way,
do pay a permit fee plus the fine.
yeah.
You good with that language, you're saying?
Yeah, I think the way M worded it is fine.
Okay. Would you like to make a motion then with that addition or change?
Sure, I can find it. The town council does hereby provide its advice and consent to the administrator for the changing of all construction-related permit fees and placement of said fees in the town-wide master fee schedule with the aforementioned change in work done without a permit fee.
And I think the wording was a minimum of $100 or 200% of permit construction fee, whichever is greater.
Boom.
Okay, is there a second on that?
I'll second that.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on that? Okay, Councilor Nadell?
Sally Nadell, aye.
Wayne Burton, aye.
Carol Ford, aye.
Curtis Reister, aye.
Cardin Welsh, aye.
Heather Grant, aye.
Robin Vogt, aye.
M. Friedrichs, aye.
Joe Friedman, aye. Okay.
Thanks, Audrey.
Thank you.
Thanks, Audrey.
Thank you for looking for places where we should have increased revenue.
And Councilor Nadell, you would ask 9F.
I would like to address F. As the budget is currently written, I will vote no on the town budget. Because at last week's meeting, the town council removed half of the funding for children's print collection in the Durham Public Library. That is a reduction of $7,575 from the proposed budget of $15,150, which is $3 more than the funding approved in 2025. And here's why I will not vote for this budget as it stands. Tactile physical book use is huge for children in particular. This is true especially when considering picture books. Picture books often do not transfer well to a digital format. Children often choose their books by actually being able to hold and see the books. They literally judge a book by its cover, by looking to see what books are on the shelves, up and down the aisles, and not by reading book reviews or scanning catalogs. Use of digital platforms for reading, such as an iPad or Kindle Fire tablet, leads to questions regarding appropriate screen time for children and access equity. If you borrow a book from the library, you have everything you need to use it. If you are attempting to use digital platforms, you need to have a tablet, phone, or computer, and stable internet access. Not like we had at our house today. Consider the equity issue. There are families that are unable to afford a digital reading platform or afford the multiple ones so that family members do not have to share. To read a physical book, you just have to pick it up. Just for example, my 2 grandchildren are regular users of their public library. They check out 10 to 25 physical books each per month. A very conservative estimate, my son tells me, would be that they check out 300 books each year from the public library. Cheryl Bass, director of the library, reported to us that there has been no decline in requests for physical books despite access to digital formats. The New Hampshire State Library statistics for the state libraries from 2022 to 2024 show that Durham had an increasing visitation trend from 63,000 to 69,000 in those 3 years. And it also turns out, as we were told this evening, that the interlibrary loan system is not a substitute for having books in our library. The explanatory text accompanying the Interlibrary Loan Code of the United States states, interlibrary loan is intended to complement rather than to substitute for good library collections built and managed to meet the routine needs of local library users. I also went online to see what other towns do in terms of interlibrary loans, and they tell their patrons they may not even ask for interlibrary loans for any book that has been published in the last 6 months. In other words, you have to wait at least 6 months just before you apply for that loan of new material. And in some towns, and actually in some cases, it's really up to the libraries that we're contacting to see if they're even willing to lend their new publications. I understand the importance of making cuts to the budget in order to bring down the town tax rate, and I can support some of those changes. However, I cannot support reducing by half the library's budget for children's print collection. And I apologize for not including the adults in this, but I hope that the adults would do their best to defend themselves. I'm just trying to defend children who don't have a voice here tonight. I would be making a motion to reconsider the amendment that reduced the funds for children's physical books. However, such motions must be made by a counselor who voted in the affirmative for that amendment. So I'm putting it out to my other counselors. If you voted to reduce the budget for children's physical books, I hope that one of you will choose to reconsider that motion. Thank you for your consideration.
I couldn't find it in the minutes to see who voted.
Oh, it's in the minutes. It's in the ones that were sent to us. Those are old
By
minutes.
email.
It was sent to us by Karen Edwards
Karen today.
So if you scan through it, it will tell you the counselors who did not vote to support children's physical books.
Okay, Counselor Welsh?
Yes, Sally, I would just make the point that we cut line items in the budget, but it's up to the person who's in charge of that area to decide where the cut is made. So the fact that we cut that from new children's books does not mean, for instance, that the library has to cut new children's books. They just have to find that $9,000 or whatever it is within the $650,000 library budget if they think, as they said tonight, that that's the most important thing for a library to do. So we just listen to people who are going to lose their homes because of taxes. I don't think we have to be too concerned about, a 2.6% cut in the library. I'm concerned about it. I'm sure everyone is. But I think the concerns are much bigger. And I think that, we have very good people in charge of the library, and they'll be able to find that money. So that's why I suggest that instead of adding stuff back, we focus on, after hearing a room full of people who are very upset, we focus on, is there more that we can take out of the budget?
I understand that. It's not a choice that I can support. I also see that if there are 2,000 households in Durham, we're talking about $3, maybe $3.50, $4 max per household in Durham to support children's books.
But what if we change it to, you have to find $18,700 somewhere in the library to cut? Would you support that?
No. Because I don't know that they can do that, and I don't know, I'm sorry, I don't know that they can do
Okay,
that.
but we just heard a whole bunch of residents come in here dying for the fact that we're funding stuff that is a choice, not a need. And I'm sure Sarah and the others, or the people, Cheryl and the others in the library, can find this money somewhere, particularly if it's so important.
So why are we looking at the library to do this and not Department of Public Works? Why aren't we saying to them, we would like to take
Did we not cut
$18,000
money out of every single major budget?
You did.
I think we did.
Did I not propose budgets, budget cuts in other departments? So I would be happy to support them elsewhere as well. And I just, I want to support what Councilor Wells has said, in that I do trust the library, head of our library, to allocate where that makes sense. I think that every single department needs to see a budget cut in this year, because that is where financially we're at. And if everyone walks away from this budget unhappy, then that's the best budget we've created, because it's an unhappy situation. And I say this as the parent of a young child. We all use the library. I absolutely believe in physical books. We're not doing screen time. I get the effect that will have. I also think, frankly, we come from a very wealthy community where we've had incredibly high standards of service. And the library is beautiful, very grateful for the standards of service, but I think 1 year without having the same degree of replacement books, we will still have a very strong library program. It's something that we can try to refund in the future as there's more tax revenue available. Speaking personally, our family this year, our property taxes are coming out of our HELOC because we don't have the budget to pay for them. And I don't think we're alone in this community in saying that. And we will recover, but I think that these are very real costs for people. I have a neighbor who's, not going to fly to California and see her dying brother because she has to pay the property taxes. So I think we need to be real about, especially the jump year after year, what that means for people.
So I fear that a year from now, we're going to say, look, the library got by without that $18,000. Let's do it again, because we don't want taxes to go up.
Hey, we might
That's
have
my
to.
fear. And you literally just said, we think we can restore in a year.
Point of order, could you ask the speakers to be recognized so we don't get into this personal argument?
Thank you, Councilor Berman.
So
I have a question.
Yes.
Where are the minutes to show who voted which way?
Does anybody bring a copy?
I'm looking at the
and
minutes right
online?
now.
I can pull them
On
up.
what page?
I think I know that it was 3 of us voted not to take the money away.
That's true, but somebody would have to vote for
And you
the
have to
other
have been here.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's cool.
So I was one?
Yeah, while we're looking at that, I'd just like to remake the point. I know you guys are tired of hearing it, that, what people are coming in for, they've just seen their taxes at the end of this year.
Yeah.
This doesn't even include what we're putting in the budget for next year. So people are upset because they received their November, December tax bill, and they will probably be just as upset when they see their June tax bill. But then the December tax bill next year is going to reflect these new taxes. People are already very upset. It's going to go up probably 9% based on some of the numbers we've heard over what they've already been stuck with. So I think, a point is that as a town governing body, we're dealing with a town that isn't growing, but we're still continuing to add more and more things, and we can't do that. So every time you vote to add new firemen, give another tax credit, make a part-time person full-time, and the town isn't growing, it's just more and more overhead for the same number of people. So it's really a tough situation. So I think we have to be a little less precious than we've been in the past about providing services, because people aren't seeing the total value of the new services or the continuing services that we're providing. I feel really bad that people who've lived in town for a long time, or people who've just moved here, are now thinking they have to leave because their taxes are going up 30, 40, 50%. It's a big item for a lot of people, and I think we should be sensitive to the fact that our idea of what the town government should be maybe is a little bigger than the idea of what a lot of the town citizens think.
So I found the section in the minutes. So it was Councillor Welsh voted, this was to make the reduction. Councillor Welsh voted aye, Councillor Ford voted nay, Councillor Burton voted nay, Chair Pro Tem Needell voted nay, Chair Friedman voted aye, Councillor Friedrichs voted aye, and Councillor Vogt voted aye. That was the vote. And it was a reduction of $18,795.
And if I can just add, I'm looking for $7,575.
Which was half the cut to
Half the cut for the children.
children's print collection at the library.
So, well, we hear that. I don't know if we're going to do anything immediately. I would like to also say something in regard to what we've heard tonight and from the audience. There was a big open question. What are we doing to perhaps allow more development come into Durham? Are we doing anything at all? And when I looked back at our meetings over the year, there were many meetings actually along the way talking about how to improve the development situation in our downtown. A lot of residents want to see a more vibrant downtown, want the services of a downtown, the stores that perhaps they used to have, or certainly new retail that is responding to town's needs. This council has been working on density. It's not through. It's in progress. I think many of us are hoping that the planning board will get through their deliberations on the height increases and density increases so that this council can perhaps move forward and encourage more of that in Durham. The workforce housing overlay zone was put into place, and while it's not perfect, it's something that developers can work with on a larger property. It's my understanding that the planning board is seriously looking at their so-called conservation subdivision regulations, where perhaps denser development could occur without disrupting too much of the green space requirements, but just clustered differently and encouraging to developers coming to town. And I think this coming year, this council is going to continue to look for ways that can perhaps encourage development and growth. And we are seeing signs that there are those that would like to come to town, both in the western edge of town with what the University of New Hampshire is doing with the Edge, and what the 121 Tech Center has brought to their property and what they're considering in the future. I would agree with, we're going to get a presentation later on the shoreline district and, you know, the consideration of making those shoreline properties less being less friendly to things that can be done in those areas in terms of property development or maintenance. So it's something this council will have to seriously consider. And I'd just like to put that out there that that many of us here are definitely focused on revenue and how we can enhance the revenue in this town and spread that and lessen the burden on existing taxpayers. Councilor Register?
I'd like to piggyback off that as well. There's a significant increase in taxes. I am also in the category of not having a plethora of money in the bank to continually shell out. This budget funds the town for the next year, which is true. However, I find that it fails to consider our third town council goal of investing in new growth in the downtown. And though it does meet the bare minimums that we require for services as expected at an exorbitant cost, It does not provide any clarity or guidance on how to improve our current situation past our nose. For the coming year, or other than hope, it's imperative that we diversify our municipal tax base. We have a gross overweight burden on the residential base, and we need to displace that to a commercial residential or a commercial municipal tax. We need to create a new plan that facilitates a conducive environment for development in order to improve the viability and attractiveness of Durham's downtown. Currently, we're demanding our residents pay more for less services, and there is no future hope or no future plan for that to abate. I'd also like to acknowledge, or at least point out, that we had a significant amount of people come up and tell us about how much stuff was going to cost and that they could not afford to pay. I did notice the absence of people that were in opposition to building heights who clearly articulated that they wanted us to tax them more at public comment, were absent tonight. I would like to make a motion. I don't know if that's appropriate right now or not.
I think you can make a motion,
Okay.
but we'll see what it is.
Yep. I move that the town council create an ad hoc account line item with the purpose of funding a study to revise and update Durham's plan for downtown.
I will second.
Thank you. And so, in my head, that's more money, right? However, each of us makes $1,200 a year. I am told a study to update a plan, because our current plan is not working. Our current plan is failing to meet the needs of this town and to appropriately diversify our tax base into an attractiveness downtown. It's $10,000 to pay for a study. And now I think given the significant hardship and the ask that we are going to end up putting on our residents with this increase in tax, regardless of what we cut, it is still going to be a double-digit increase in taxes. That in a show of commitment to Durham and a show of good faith, the town council voluntarily donates its 2026 stipend into this fund to fund a future investment in Durham.
No second.
There was a second on the
Second.
original motion. I don't know, I think this was commentary on the motion, not actually a
it's not
change
part
to
of
the
the
motion. What's that?
It's not part of the motion.
It's not part of the motion. And any other comments about this motion to create a study? Is that what you're saying? Create a study next
Create an
year
account,
sometime?
an ad hoc account line item for the purpose, I'll read it verbatim again, just so we're not having Todd write too many
Well,
things
this
down.
isn't the motion that you originally
Yeah, the
made.
original
No, this is
motion.
the motion I originally made. I move that the town council creates an ad hoc account with the purpose of funding a study to revise and update Durham's plan for downtown.
So that has an unspecified date to it,
Well,
but go ahead.
just to point out, that's outside of our normal process. There's a planning board, we have others. If we don't want to violate our own rules. I mean, I don't know how the last master plan was put together, but
We have
I'm a little
no,
uneasy about doing this from the council when we have other groups working on development.
we have no proposal in front of us to do a $10,000 study. We don't know that that's the number.
Okay.
You have a proposal to do a study?
I can go get one if
Well, we can go
necessary.
get proposals, but there's none in front of the council.
I need funding to coordinate that. I can't promise anything other than a hope and dream. I am working within other organizations outside of the normal avenues of approach. but-
Did the motion request a certain amount of money?
No.
No, nor a date?
No, it's not.
Okay. So is there any further discussion on the motion?
Whose will be on it? Who will it be on the commission?
So this is a packaged thing. This is a packaged charrette that I have mentioned multiple times before. I am happy to amend perspective and amend studies as necessary or amend commentary or words, and I do not pretend to have a 100% site picture on solving this problem. But we all know that Durham downtown needs a solution and that it is failing currently. And yet we have not created a plan to fix it, and we are relying on a master plan that is currently failing and not addressing what we need. And our plan currently is to wait until an individual retires and then redo the master plan, which is a multiple years away and is not giving any confidence of a solution in the interim.
Councillor Friedrichs?
Thank you. I just want to say that I appreciate the intent behind what you want to do. I think I'm concerned from, working with my sibling who does urban planning and some downtown revitalization, that I think that this would be a $25,000 to $100,000 budget item. And I also think that our town planner has spoken against the idea, most recently saying that the current plan in place is inadequate. While I may not share his perspective, I do feel that if our town staff is not supportive of this initiative, it would be very challenging to, from past experience, if our town planner is not in support of this idea, I think it'll be very challenging to realize it. And so I think that it's an excellent thing to be working on for town goals this coming year. But I think that we need some more consensus building as to process and what it would look like. And we need a budget that is updated and have a timeline. But I think that really pushing this issue in the town goals is a great thought.
Councillor Grant?
So the idea of a consultant that just focuses on the central area, I think, is a long-term thing. It's not going to be something that solves our problems in terms of what we need to be accomplishing on zoning changes right away. And I think that when we start to talk about the master plan or just doing even one focus plan, what happens is that people that are anti-development already, that it's challenging to get our zoning changes through in terms of density, will say, well, we shouldn't do anything now until we have this plan. When we already have, business people with good backgrounds, technical people that understand what it takes to build in a dense area, are telling us that these are the things that will work to help with the development of downtown, and we should be trying to have a common sense position on that zoning today, and anything else ends up just slowing everything else down. We start to work on the conservation subdivisions, it'll be, no, well, we should be waiting on that, and should we be waiting on this and waiting, when all we keep doing is keep pushing, decisions down the road again and again and again. And I think that we need to really focus on what we can accomplish with the tools that we have today, as long as we are also then working on a master plan for the future. But if we say we're going to do that now, then we're not going to do anything, because we'll wait. It's just my 2 cents.
Councillor Wells?
Yeah, I agree with Heather. When Paul was in here and we brought up this subject, he said, well, what if it conflicts with the master plan? So, okay, now you have another plan, and you've got the master plan, and you've got people on the left and people on the right, and I just think it's going to be a waste of time and effort. I think what Heather says is appropriate and is probably the way forward. Again, I've lived in Durham since 1991, and nothing is as simple as getting an outside plan and then enacting it, because there's many, many people here. So our way is slow, but I think there is potential development on the horizon. We know that Riverwoods is adding a big new area. We're hopeful for the West Edge. I know hope isn't a strategy, but it looks like stuff is happening there. We have the R.J. Kelly development that's going on. So there is some hope, a light at the end of the tunnel. But I think what we're hearing from a lot of the townspeople is we've gotten way ahead of the development, and we have to slow it down until they catch up. So I'm sort of here saying, let's slow down and not spend this money and not add new people and not do certain things until we have the additional revenue to support it, and I understand the frustration from some of my fellow counselors. I'm frustrated too, but I don't think throwing $10,000 in the new plan is going to help at all. And it might hurt, as Heather said.
I'll add on to that in the downtown, there have been a couple of large properties or a couple of properties that have transferred in the last few months, one on Main Street, one on Jenkins Court. And those properties are looking very closely at what we're going to do about the 3-story height limit, as well as requiring still upper floors to contain a commercial use. So those two changes alone, allowing greater height and removing the upper story commercial use, makes a big difference in someone's ability to make a project work. And I'm hopeful personally that that will come through from the planning board after their public hearing, and this council will have an opportunity to signal to the development community that Durham is wanting some more and new and quality development.
Just a quick point. I do think we need, I really liked when we had a economic development person, because I used to do that kind of stuff in the North Shore, and you got to have somebody to call outside of Todd to talk about what you'd like to do, and make sure you get all the tax breaks and all the other stuff that goes with that development. I think it was important. We had a half-time person, and I think things got better when she was here, and we had a downtown, the Chamber of Commerce. I do want to make one comment on the testimony tonight. I applaud the people who spoke for making a terrific investment in waterfront property that will serve them well down the line. I wish I had waterfront property worth $1.7 million myself. I don't. I built my house for $40,000. Now the town has it at $870 something. I can't believe it. But that was an investment for me. Now, you have to understand that it's my understanding, Todd, that the way we assess property is prescribed in law, right? We don't have a choice. The state tells us you have to assess all property the same way. And so the values of the properties are not within our discretion. But I agree, I agree with others who think that our economic base is where we have to move because we don't have any choice, really. And I see, rather than do another plan, take more time, we should appoint an economic development group and include some of the people that were here to testify tonight. As I said before, help us out. You're all business people, you're successful investors. What are your ideas for building the tax base? Would you go out and talk to other companies that you were so successful with? Let's do something active to increase the tax base so you don't have to come before us and complain, because no one mentioned what services we should reduce. Fire and police? I mean, we're in the municipal business, not in a business. Businesses can reduce expenses and then reduce when sales go down. We can't reduce expenses because the need is always there for medical support, for fire support, for all the things we do. But I think an active economic development effort, whatever course it takes, and I get worried about another plan, another year, I think we could do it now. But I think it should be under Todd, and I think it should be someone who the business people can talk to.
All right, so there's a motion on the table. We should resolve that motion so we can move on to the next topic.
So we'd like to resolve that motion, and I would like to further this conversation and perhaps have the administrator answer that question after the vote, if we could. The vote being, do we do a study of an unknown date for an unknown amount? Or you have the, did somebody write down the original?
I can read it again.
Okay, please read it again, thank you.
I move that the town council create an ad hoc account with the purpose of funding a study to revise and update Durham's plan for downtown.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on that? Councilor Friedrich?
M. Friedrichs, nay.
Robin vote, yes.
Heather Grant, nay.
Cardin Welsh, nay.
Curtis Reister, aye.
Darrell Ford, nay.
Wayne Burton, nay.
Sonia Del, nay.
Joe Friedman, nay.
It's 7 no and 2 yes, so it fails.
So if we could explore a little bit more on the economic development, Councilor Burton had asked about some sort of perhaps committee or council or...
I have a question, just process. Is this more appropriate for the roundtable? We're talking about, we're talking about
We should move back to
the
budget.
budget. I mean, that's we're on F. What are we going to do with item F?
Thank you.
Fair enough. Any other comments on that? Councilor Welsh?
I just have a question. Is there support among my other councilors to cut more out of the budget?
No.
I don't know where.
Does someone have?
I would say yes, but all of my ideas, as well as a flat, across the board cut that either the administrator or department heads could allocate, were all already made motions for and failed. So there's not a, unless people who voted against those would like to reconsider, I don't believe that I can put forth any other motions from ideas that I have had or from the idea of a general across the board cut. So.
Is there any support for asking Todd to take 50,000 more out of the budget?
I would support that.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we ask Todd to take another $50,000 out of the budget, given what we've heard from the people in the town.
I'll second that.
Any discussion on that?
That's a terrible way to do legislation. It's so easy to say, cut 50. How many firefighters do we cut? Police officers, the library. No one tonight mentioned any big numbers. They complain about the numbers. There's a difference between public administration and private businesses. And to cut another 50 out of here, I don't think we can do it right now. Maybe over the course of the next year. But I'm going to vote against the budget. I like what Sally said. The library shouldn't be cut, but I can't make a motion because I voted against it in the first place.
I just think for me, it's hard to say cut 50,000 without being able to give any guidance to Todd on where that next 50,000 is going to come from. So
I might just say we already did that and we did find 50,000. And in response to my friend Councilor Burton, it's not a horrible way to do a budget. As we heard from people tonight, they've been asked to cut 10%, 15%, 20% to save their businesses. We're not that different. There are things that the town provides that are like to have, not need to have. And so there were several things that I spoke against that other councilors spoke against in this budget and were voted down. But I wonder if after hearing from the people and hearing that they might have to sell their house and they haven't even seen this budget in their taxes yet, I wonder if there's no one better than Todd to cut $50,000 more out of the budget. And we've all tried things and we've brought them up and discussed them, and some have passed and some have failed. But I'm just wondering if there's ability, because I think the budget is expensive for a lot of people and very, very difficult for a lot of people to support.
do you think people would support eliminating curbside pickup of their trash?
No, I think that's basically a basic town responsibility for a town of our type, is picking up trash and not having everyone have to drive to to the transfer station every week and carry trash in their car to the transfer station. I think that's a basic service that people should get. It also would go against our whole plan to cut the greenhouse gases from the town, having everyone drive there and drive back every week. So I disagree. I think there's basic functions, police, fire, public works, that the town should support. And we're lucky enough to have a town that's wealthy enough to have a good library and good parks and rec and good other things that are nice to have, and we've supported and will continue to support, but perhaps not at the level that people would like for a few years until we get more development.
I just threw that out because it's something that we could look at, and it's very specific. You could give some guidance. That's why I put it out there.
I do think it would be.
Hang on a second. Councilor Register?
I just wanted to state that, I articulate that if we don't find consensus tonight on the budget, as I understand it, we either revert back to the 18% increase or we need to meet again next week.
We only need 48 hours notice. We don't have to wait a week.
Either way, I mean, either we solve it tonight or we need to come back.
Councilor Friedrich?
I was just going to point out that I doubt that removing the waste pickup would result in cost savings in the sense that we would need to extend the transfer station hours considerably in order to get that many cars and people in there. We would probably have to do some adjustment of the layout of the transfer station as well to accommodate. So at least in the first year, I don't know how much savings we would see immediately. I mean, if we want to throw out two ideas, if we start decommissioning streetlights, how much could we save in electricity?
That's a safety issue.
And, well, a lot of towns don't have as many streetlights as we have. I come from living in a place that had a lot less of things than Durham has, generally. Weren't having safety issues. I think also that, we could look at removing $50,000 out of the IT budget, which is a part of every single department's budget. It may mean less frequently updated devices. That may be more of a hassle to staff and so forth, but that is something that, devices, software, let departments figure out what is most critical. That's something that is across the board, everyone has, but probably you could do with, fewer software things to help with their work or, less frequently replaced devices. I understand that it may cause more work for staff, but that's one idea. So there's two ideas out there if you want more specific things.
I think we should vote on the budget.
Well, there is an open motion that was seconded.
I just wanted some clarity on the open motion, which is, would I have the flexibility to revisit items which have been proposed to date but rejected for cuts? Is basically everything on the table for me to look at.
I would say yes.
So the motion is to, this is a motion to, we haven't made the motion tonight to accept the budget, but this is to reduce $50,000 ahead of accepting the budget.
Yes.
Okay. And it was seconded, so we'll go ahead and have a vote. Councilor Needle?
Signedell, nay.
Wayne Burton, nay.
Darrell Ford, aye.
Kurt Schweitzer, nay.
Cardin Welsh, aye.
Heather Grant, aye.
Robin Vogt, nay.
M. Friedrichs, aye.
Joe Friedman, aye. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 5 yes and 4 no. So that would be a $50,000 reduction. So I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that the Durham Town Council hereby adopt Resolution 2025-22 approving the fiscal year 2026 operating capital and special fund budgets and the 2026 2030 to 2035 capital improvement plan as amended tonight and in our packet.
I'll second that motion.
Second. Is there further discussion on the budget? Councilor Welsh?
Yeah, this isn't the budget that I would have dreamed up myself, but I respect the input of my other fellow counselors, and they were voted and I was appointed, so I understand that dynamic as well. So I will vote yes.
Curtis Rasher, nay.
Darrell Ford, aye.
Wayne Burton, nay.
Sonia Dell, nay.
Joe Friedman, aye.
M. Friedrichs, aye.
Robin vote nay.
Heather Grant, aye.
That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yes and 4 no, so it passes. Budget passes. And so I will revisit the budget line items and find an additional $50,000 in cuts, and that will simply be incorporated into the final adopted budget.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I had suggested, I think I did early on, that we put a negative in the budget that we approved to be determined as the year unfolds. In other words, what do they call it, an offset? That way, we could see how the year unfolds and would have to hit the $50,000 reduction across the year and not have to predict it now, although you now have freedom to move money around between line items anyway, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll determine where the $50,000 cut should be. I'm not sure, sitting here right now, so.
And that's not necessarily something we're going to have to approve?
That's correct. Based upon the discussion tonight, I'll determine that.
So you're going to basically put the budget number minus 50,000 and then find out how to...
Yes.
Okay. All right. There are no committee appointments tonight. We have a presentation by Mr. Dwight Trueblood and Neil Slepian from the Conservation Commission.
Grab a little more water.
Can we take a 5-minute break, actually? Come back in 5.
You tell us.
We'll have a 5-minute break.
I think you gotta hit the thing in the chair.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate your waiting and look forward to your comments.
It seems like we're having a little technical difficulty getting the presentation up on the screen.
The budget was cut.
We just cut that from the chief budget just got slashed.
We're going to move back to the building across the street.
I don't mean to laugh, but
I mean, they have beer on tap.
Oh, I think that would make things better, for sure.
do we need to ask DCAT for help?
I have it switched properly down here. Would you like my help upstairs?
Yes, because I've got the cord plugged in, but it's not picking the signal up. It says no signal on the screens.
She will be up to help.
My computer was voted by the system to be too old, Dwight, if that is happening to you too.
Yay.
Something just wasn't plugged in. As always, that's the first thing IT at my company always says, is this plugged in? Did you read it? Did you read it? And sometimes that's when because something.
I mean, I could also try to go offline and load this. Okay.
Always try to know. Wiggle, 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 all working.
Okay, I'm going to put it on. There you go.
Yay, okay.
Well, now it's loading.
Hey, Daryl.
The hell is
All
going
right.
on here?
Loaded.
This is why I don't like using. So I'm going to open a different program. I have it back up here.
Good.
Ready when you are.
Yeah, we're still having an issue here. There's some downloading update that's trying to launch on my computer here.
My screensaver.
What is this?
But no.
Oh, I know what the problem is.
You do?
Yeah. It's the wrong presentation. Apologize for this. I'll get things going here soon.
I can start talking.
Yeah,
about
go
that.
ahead.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to ask everybody to use your imagination. So we're going to start with, I'm Neil Slepian, Vice Chair of the Conservation Commission, and my colleague is Dwight Trueblood, the Chair. And we're here tonight to give you an overview presentation of our proposed wetland and shoreland overlay district, which is, the proposal is for it to take it's one ordinance for wetlands and shorelands for the town, and our proposal is that it replace two current ordinances, the Shoreland Protection Overlay District and the Wetland Conservation Overlay District. So what we have done, what we're proposing to do is merge them into one big, beautiful ordinance. So what we have here is an overview of what our process was, what our history was, who was involved, how long it took, what our next steps are, and public comments that we've received so far. So I just want you to know that this proposal is a work in process, and we've sought and we've received a lot of feedback, and we're going to be getting more. So I'd like to start with what's the mission of the Conservation Commission? And our mission, by state mandate, is to inventory, manage, and protect the natural resources of the town. And this was basically our operating procedure as we were going through this. We took the position that we're not here to look at politics. We're not here to necessarily look at individual property owners. What we're here to do is to speak for the natural resources of the town. So a couple of points on of this is to for the protection and sustainable use of our town's natural resources, protection of critical habitats, mitigate the effects of contaminants that would flow by one means or another into our waterways, and also to provide connectivity for wildlife. So that was our mindset. So a question that we've gotten a lot is, why do we need to update the SPOD and the WCOD? And there's really 5 main reasons that, there are multiple reasons, but the 5 key reasons are that the current ordinances have been in place for about 20 years. And in that 20 years, climate science and the effects of sea level rise and climate change have made themselves known just by, if you just follow the news, you see that climate change and sea level rise are having great effects on communities all across the world. The other thing that we saw when we started getting into this was that the 2 separate ordinances had about a 75% overlap. And we felt that it was unnecessarily confusing, unnecessarily cumbersome to have 2 ordinances where if we merge them, one would do. I mentioned that the